Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. Since releasing our Rob Cosman Workbench video, we've had lots of interest in this sliding lamp. Trust me, the older you get, the more light you need. So what we're going to do today is we are going to build a sliding lamp for that bench. Stay with us. I'm Rob Cosman and welcome to my shop. We make it our job to help you take your woodworking to the next level. If you're new to our channel, be sure to subscribe. Turn on that notification bell, and don't forget to turn on the notification on your mobile device so you'll know every time we release a new video. Good? All right, back to the bench. So this is the Cosman Workbench. We'll leave a link to the video on building it, but what's really good about it is it can be built with minimal tools, minimal skill, and pretty minimal cost. Essentially made up with two materials. 1-inch MDF, you can use 3/4 if you can't find 1 inch, and 5/8 Baltic birch. Plywood, you can use regular plywood, but the Baltic birch is solid Baltic. It's actually birch all the way through. Of course, the plies are cross-grained, but instead of having a cheap inner core, this stuff is much better. Essentially, it's solid birch. It's nice because it can be done quickly, as I mentioned, with very few tools. And you don't have to be a highly skilled woodworker in order to produce it. 1 or 2 weekends, you've got a great bench to work on. So what we do is we have a bench lamp, and we make something called a mushroom. Now, let me explain why. The weak link on this particular lamp is, without that piece of steel that we add in there, you only have half that material because of the way it's made. And if you put that into a 1/2-inch hole, and twisting and turning and using it, in no time, that ends up breaking right across there. So what we do is we put a steel rod in there, an extra bolt in here to tighten it, to hold it in place, to more securely connect this piece to that piece. But even then, I've had it on my old bench, I just had 1/2-inch holes drilled along there, and just over time, the hole gets all worn out because of the amount of movement. So we make what we call a mushroom. We sell these on our site, and the mushroom has a 1/2-inch hole in it, so that fits in there nice and snugly. Then we put that into the same dog-sized dog hole that we use. And what's nice about it is with that extra surface area, the lamp does not turn inside the mushroom. The mushroom turns inside that hole, and it minimizes wear. It works fantastic. The problem is, on our benches in our classroom, we typically only have 1 hole for the bench lamp. You're going to be dovetailing down here, so that will reach. If you want to go to other places in your bench, you've either got to drill a bunch of other holes, which I would prefer not to do, or you don't get to see. So the solution is this sliding lamp holder. We make it so that you can move it anywhere. It's great because you can illuminate wherever you are, and it's heavy enough that it doesn't tip over. In fact, I can pretty much move that lamp all the way out to one side or the other, and it doesn't fall over. And if I need to, I can simply take the whole thing off and put it underneath the bench, and it's not in my way. So the task today, and you'll notice that we've added a tool tray to this bench, and lots of folks want to do that. I prefer a tool tray just because I'd rather have my tools falling into there instead of on the floor. So we're going to use this back side, which is a little bit thinner than on my bench. However, we can still do it. We'll go through, we'll lay out the pieces. You want to have enough weight and enough stability so that your bench lamp doesn't fall over when you've got it stretched out to the left or to the right. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this out of maple as well. It wears well, it's tough, durable wood. And by the way, this was not designed to have a tool tray added. So what we did is just dovetailed 3 pieces, used a 1/2-inch plywood bottom that is secured in a groove on those 3 pieces, but the plywood goes into about there, and then you can easily screw that plywood up in to the underside, and it actually makes for a pretty solid attachment. All right, so how wide do we want it to be? Don't want to take up a whole lot of room, but like I said, we've got to have stability. Let's measure this one. And the downside is I'm not going to be able to make this as heavy just because I don't have the same depth. So that one is 12 inches. I'm going to try just going 12 inches. So we're going to need, we'll go the front piece first. So we need 1 piece that's going to be 12. And I think we should drop that down the whole length. That means we're going to be sitting up here. We've got to have a piece heavy enough for the lamp to go in, and we want all of the lamp. So if our mushroom is almost 2 3/8 of an inch long, so if we set our measuring tape at say 2.5 inches, and then come down here, I'm going to go 6 inches. I think that'll be wide enough. So 12 by 6, and this is 3/4. It's actually a little less than that, but we'll go with 3/4, and that's going to be maple. Now on the inside, on my bench, I have ramps at either end that make it easy to clean things out, although I don't clean things out very often. And when I built my mobile lamp rack, I cut that angle so that when you slide it all the way over to one side, you can take it all the way over. You're not bumping down there. Plus, if you left that square, you'd eventually have a big bruise right there from smacking into it. So this way you have a lot more surface area touching when it stops. Over here, we don't have ramps in there, so we can just leave it square. You could add ramps if you want. It just makes it easier to clean things out. You're not digging down into corner, but I usually use a vacuum cleaner anyway. So for that reason, I'm going to make the inside piece is going to be the same. So we're just going to double this up. So it'll be 2 pieces. And I think the everything else, oh, wait a minute now. Hold on a second here. We can't have it. Yeah, we can. We can make it just as deep. That goes down 2 7/8. 2 7/8. We better make it a little bit shorter. What did we say we needed for this? We need 2 3/8. So if we set that, let's do the inside one. Actually, I can't because I can't do the math. 2 3/8. Let's bring that down 5 1/4. 5 1/4 would give us lots of reference. I'm going to go 5 1/4. I'm just going to put a mark here real quick to see if we can do that on the inside. 2 7/8. Have we got 2 7/8 on the inside? Not quite. So we're going to have to go 5 1/8. So let's change that. 12 by 5 1/8 by 3/4. I think it'll still give lots of reference. And this is maple, of course. Now that center section is going to be 12, and we want 2 3/8. And then it can only be 3/4 because it essentially has to be the same as this. We've got to fine tune that. Now when we'll glue it all together because that's a 1-inch diameter hole. So when we actually bore that hole, we're going to be boring into this inside piece and the outside piece, but glued together, it's all one anyway. So we're going to make that 3/4. And what we'll do is we'll machine it to 3/4, but then we'll come in and fine tune it because we want it to be snug enough that there's not a lot of play, but loose enough that it'll move. And that'll be maple as well. And really this thing is just made out of those 3 pieces of wood. So I'm going to go ahead and mill them up, and then we'll come back to the fine tuning. So, made a little change. It's going to be rather square and boxy looking, so I thought, well, I'll dress it up a little bit. So I had some bird's eye maple laying around. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now this was also already milled. I actually got this at a going out of business auction at a furniture place. They had a whole bunch of panels already glued up. That's why they had ripped it and glued it all back together after flipping the rings, which I think is a useless exercise. But this is 7/8. And I got thinking, well, I'd like to keep that because that means extra weight to help secure the lamp, keep it from moving. So what I'm going to do, there's a slight cup, a little twist in these boards. I'm going to process them by hand to flatten the inside, get nice and smooth. And then I'll run them through the thickness planer just to get the outside parallel to this side. And then we're back to dealing with flat stock. But I want that finish right off the hand plane anyway. So that's how I'm going to do this. Outside. Okay, I planed off all the mill marks, but I'll sharpen my plane again and get a final finish on there. But I'm not going to worry about that right now because we've got clamping and other procedures that'll make it possibly put marks in it. So we'll leave it as is until we have actually assembled it, and then we can come in and put our final finish. So just squeezing those pieces together, we can see we got quite a bit of play. So I'm going to start by taking about a 1/16 of an inch off of this. Okay, I'm going to actually put a couple of clamps on here, squeezing it right in the middle of this piece. I'm going to do the rest of this by hand, but it's going to be a lot of stopping and checking, because when this tool tray was built, there wasn't the intent that I was going to slide something from end to end, meaning this was just plain down until it was cleaned up. So one end may possibly be a little bit thicker or thinner than the other. So I'll clean this up, clamp it back together, make sure I can travel the entire distance without it jamming, and then we can proceed. Okay, that's a good fit. It moves freely enough without jamming. Okay, that's good. Now, all we're going to do is glue that together. There's no reason to do anything mechanical. Glue is sufficient. There's lots of surface area. Make sure we keep everything good and flush. Especially along the top where we'll have a joint line. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to plane that top edge. I want that nice and smooth. I'll quickly run and plane over that. Now, once I've planed it, I'm going to come in here and create a little bit of a hollow in the middle so that it doesn't rock. If anything, with a slight hollow, it'll touch on the two outside edges and make for a more stable operation.
There's stuff in that corner. Pull the other one away.
Now I'm going to put a clamp if I can catch the entire that'll keep everything flush in that direction. Spoke too soon. This over. Okay, it moved a little bit here. Yeah, that's close enough that I can plane. Now I'm going to throw a couple more clamps in there just because I've got them. And I want a nice tight fit along that top. Hey, if you like this video, we have more. Our newsletter has subscriber-only content, monthly discount on tools, and anything we bring out that's new, subscribers get first crack at it. Click on the link below. Let's get back to work. Okay, out of the clamps. Now, set that on there. And it slides almost the way I want, but there's just a little sticking point. So I'm going to run that back and forth. And what that should do is give me a little burnish spot. I can see it in there. Now I'm going to, I went over to the bandsaw earlier and I just took a piece of maple, a little less than 3/4 so it would fit in there. And I just went on the bandsaw and I cut this back. So I had a little flat spot right there. And I used some Porter Cable self-adhesive 120 grit paper. And I'm going to use that to reach in there and just dress those shiny spots. Can't really get any kind of a cutting edge in there. Actually, it's a little easier this way. The spot was right up in close, which is what I would expect. Now, try this again. Not as bad, but still a little bit. In fact, that's almost where I want it. Okay, that travels freely enough. I say enough just because it's not enough to worry about. Okay, so now the cleanup. Now the idea is just to get everything flush, and then I'll come back and resharpen, and with a fresh edge, I'll get a perfect finish. Okay, that feels good. Now, playing the end grain flush, but we got to prevent tear out on the back side. So we'll cut a chamfer along there. I got a little bit of glue right there. Take that off easier with a chisel. It wasn't as bad as I thought. That center piece is high. And we'll come back and do everything with a freshly sharpened edge. But for right now, we just want to get rid of the heavy stuff. These bottom edges. This one has to go that way. So, plane this one first. And then just use my thumb to verify there's no tears. And flip it around for this one. Oh, that's going to be a challenge in both directions. I'm going to pull my blade in. I may have to resharpen before I go any further, but I'll try oftentimes with just a really light pass. And you can see how that's improving. We still have tears in the surface because that's where those holes come from. But as we continue, they should eventually disappear. And then your shaving tells you what your surface looks like. We still have some torn stuff. I'm going to retract the blade a little bit. Now that looks pretty good. And when I run my thumb over there, I don't feel anything but a nice smooth surface. Okay, so this has already been planed, but it needs a final cleanup. And then, of course, everything else is going to as well. But before we do that, let's get the hole drilled. And we'll just put it in the center. So this is 12, so that's going to be 6. And this is 2 3/8, so 1 3/16. Actually, just a little bit stronger than that. Put my mark in the wrong spot. Clean. And I've got it set so that I can go right down to the opening. And the only reason I'm doing that is if it fills up with dirt and whatever, it'll fall out the bottom instead of me having to take it off and blow it out. Okay, that fits. Now, I think what I'll do first, just because sometimes the base of the router will mark things up, I'm going to go in and do the edge treatment. So on this bench, you've got a quarter round, which means that I'm going to do a quarter round on this as well, just because it fits. No sense putting a chamfer when you've got everything else quarter round. And that's a 3/16, so it's a very light quarter round. And what I'll do is go all around, obviously, all around this one, all around this and that. I'm not going to do the inside of there. I will do that bottom edge. I won't do anything in and around here. That's easy enough to do. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is plane, so next move is to sand out those, or just give that a quick sanding, make it smooth. Now I'm going to use a felt back sanding block that'll conform to that shape, and I'm going to go right to 220. Okay, fresh edge. Should give us a nice finished cut. I always start with the blade fully retracted and then start planing, and while planing, spin the adjuster knob, or our version of it, until you start to pick up a shaving. Hopefully it's going to be in the middle. It might be a little bit to one side, so I'll just make a slight lateral adjustment. Okay, that's good. I'll go right to these. I don't have to do anything because I've got that radius on the back side. That's clean. That's clean. I'm going to retract that a little bit. Okay, now whether we use oil or something like lacquer, just to keep it from getting dirty. Now I have the advantage of putting that anywhere I want, and it's heavy enough that it doesn't tip over. That will make your life so much better. Enjoy it. If you enjoy my method of work and like my style of teaching, click on any one of these videos to help take your woodworking to the next level. I've always said better tools make the job so much easier. If you click on the plane and chisel icon below, it'll take you to our site and introduce you to all the tools that we actually manufacture right here in our shop. It'll also give you information on our in-person and online workshops.